Recently, Justin from the Fabrication Series announced,
Alright guys, I think it's time I tell you I'm officially downsizing my shop.
which is kind of sad because that means a couple of his projects are getting the boot. But, on the other hand, he kind of saved the day over at GarageFab. One of his projects is Mighty Max based. Mighty Max frame, Mighty Max drivetrain, and it has a steering box that I didn't know existed. If you're just joining GarageFab, my Mighty Max project is getting a 4G63 motor and it has a narrowed frame up front. Narrowing the frame pushed my steering box right up against the engine and put me in a huge pickle. Thanks to the intake, the steering box doesn't fit on the left side anymore. The only thing I could think of is to make it right-hand drive. The problem, this project is my wife's truck, and though I would love to have a right-hand drive truck, I can't guarantee that Caroline would like the steering wheel on the right and trying to shift with the left. And that's where Justin comes in. The steering box that he has, for whatever reason, is a mirror image to mine. My box mounted on the inside of the frame rail, and so it contacted the motor. His steering box mounts on the outside. I've never been so excited to keep something factory, but this is a huge weight off my shoulders. Hey Garage Fabbers, this is going to be a very strange episode because I have a million things that I need to get done, but I have a million other things that are preventing each of those things from getting done. Let me explain. I want to fully assemble and get the engine running, but I can't because the firewall is in the way of some sensors in the back. The steering box is in the way of being able to bolt up the intake manifold. My first thought is to just remove the steering box and figure it out later, and remove the firewall. I could work on the engine then, but before I connect the wiring and the fuel, I should probably pull the engine out, figure out the clutch assembly, because I'm bolting a transmission that doesn't technically belong on this engine block, and the clutch flywheel situation is gonna be really weird. I also want to get this thing off the jack stands, finally, after several years, so that we can see all the hard work in the air suspension pay off. But I can't do that until the steering is connected. I can't connect the steering until I get that box figured out. So it's just a giant circle of frustration. So this video, I envision, is going to be me starting a whole bunch of stuff and finishing absolutely nothing. Before I get too deep into anything, I just want to swap out these steering boxes really fast to see if this is really the answer to all my problems. When you put a 4G63 engine in a Mighty Max, depending on where you mount it in the frame and depending on what sort of coolant accessories you have bolted to the back of the motor, the firewall may need to be modified. A lot of people just whack it with a hammer to make room. I'm not much of a hammer guy. I think I can make it look a lot better than that. Not to mention, I've got a million other things changing that are going to change the firewall as well. So I'm just going to start from scratch. My steering column shaft is going to come out at a different spot. The steering column itself is going to get bolted in differently. The mounting for the Mitsubishi Eclipse air conditioner is going to be completely different. So I'm just going to put in a whole new firewall. I don't know what the new firewall is going to look like. All I know is that the old firewall needs to get out of my way. So I'm going to cut it out completely, but I'm going to try to be smart about it. I need a little lip all the way around that will allow me to attach a piece of sheet metal. I'll leave about a 1/2 inch around the bottom. I'll leave about a 1/2 inch all around the trans tunnel. I don't know if there's going to be bead rolling. I don't know where there's going to need to be holes. All I know is that the future firewall is going to be relatively flat, and then we'll worry about the rest later. Well, when they talk about blood, sweat, and tears, I think this is what they're talking about. Just trying to get a cotter pin out of here. Pulled on a cotter pin, it wouldn't come out. Pulled harder, and my finger slid right up against that nice cut edge. If you don't like blood, fast forward. I don't think it's too bad, but it doesn't feel good. But I am gonna take a break and get cleaned up and get a Band-Aid. It's a new day. Had to call it quits yesterday so I could bandage myself up. I'm not sure how this is gonna go. I was going to use a Sawzall yesterday to cut the whole firewall out, but this wasn't so bad. I'm pretty sure I at least damaged a nerve because my pinky is buzzing. Still, I could feel stuff, but today it feels fine unless I shake it or bump it on something. And oh my God, it feels like I'm gonna faint immediately. Some of the worst pain I've ever felt, but yet when I'm not doing anything, all I can feel is the bandage. It's totally fine. Just don't bump it, don't shake it. So I don't know how well the Sawzall is gonna work out. Hopefully I'm not gonna regret this, but I am not going to put any supports inside this cab before I take this firewall off. And it could be a really bad idea because the firewall has a lot to do with structure. When I take the firewall out, technically the cab could get really loose. When you remove the center of something, you can get kind of a situation. But I'm just not gonna. Partially out of laziness, and then partially because I stand back and I look at it and I feel like with the wiper cowl and the supports by the doors, I don't think it's gonna be a problem. But it's a really good idea to attach some diagonal supports, usually inside the cab, across the firewall so that this can't happen. Before we take the firewall all the way out, if I make a mark on it between these two pieces, I think we should be able to see just how floppy this cab is. It doesn't look like a lot of flex. I really have to push on it to get it to move, so I think I'm okay not bracing it out, but I would still highly recommend putting some cross braces in there. I think it's going to be hard getting any kind of cutting tool in here between the motor and the firewall and the frame and the firewall. So I think I'm going to be doing the cutting on the inside. And I just want like a 1/2 inch to 1 inch bit of flat metal all the way around. I can't see this line inside, that's for your sake. So you can see what I'm aiming for when I'm trying to cut this. I was going to try to mark the location of the brake booster hole here, but decided I don't think I really need to. This is also where the brake pedal mounts, and I don't want the brake pedal to move. But it's okay because the part that I'm cutting off will be gone, obviously, but there's a couple bolt holes here and here that locate the whole brake bracket, which has basically a template for relocating that hole anyways. So I'm not going to bother marking where this hole is. The steering hole, if it's not obvious, needs to move over quite a bit because the frame was narrowed, and all the other holes might end up in different locations anyways because this is a completely different motor. So the accelerator cable may not be there. The clutch pedal will probably be right there, but it shouldn't be too hard to figure out. You know what? Let me just put a little mark right there and I'll try to remember that that is where the Nah, it's fine. Forget it. This is the perfect video to describe how my brain works on a daily basis. It's like, I don't want to work on the firewall anymore. Let's work on the steering a little bit. Since we put the steering box in that goes on the other side of the frame rail, this little mounting tab needs to be cut off and turned around so that it can mount to the steering box. And I don't know if you can see the light in between the box and the frame. That's because the tubes that are welded into the holes for the bolts are sticking out. So we're gonna flatten those out so they can sit nice and flat up against the frame. And then we have to modify the steering linkage. See these nubs? These need to go. I'm gonna knock them down. They're welded on the outside. Hopefully I won't be cutting out all the weld when I flatten them out, but I should be able to tell. And if I am, then I'll just re-weld them up. I didn't grind down the middle one as much because there's a bit of a recess right about where that's located, so no sense in doing all that work if I don't have to. Struggle to survive, and you're still alive. Even if you've been beside, and all of your dreams are dead, carry on. Even if you can't forget. Well, that sucks. It's kind of what I was worried about. Let's see if I can show this on camera. When I ground off these welds, I was worried it was going to be grinding off too much of the weld. And then when I tightened it up once, you can kind of see that it's breaking around the edge of that tube. And it looks like these tubes are not welded on the other side. It's just welded on this side. I got a couple ideas. If I'm right about these tubes not being welded in on the other side, I should be able to finish breaking these welds. Alright, plan B. I have a punch that fits pretty tight in the hole there, and then I found a hole cutter that fits that punch nicely, and I have removed the guide pin from the center. The plan is to cut that tube back a little bit so that it detaches from the frame, and that will tell me if it's welded over here or if it's not. If the tube just falls out, we can work with that, or if it is welded to the back and it's just hanging out in there, that's also fine. So then we'll just weld it on this side. And it must be attached on the other side because it is fully cut out and the tube is still just levitating there. So that's fine. I'm just gonna fill up this gap with weld, and then I'm gonna have to re-drill that hole because my weld boogers are gonna be all over on that inside thing. The bolt's not gonna fit anymore, but that's okay. I'm gonna do the same thing over here. Oh man, that sucks. These Hugin rotor cut hole cutters are freaking amazing, but you can't twist them a whole lot, and I don't know what I was thinking. I really tried to twist this son of a gun. Yeah, killed this one. Time to buy a replacement. We're about to get pretty heavy in steering design on this channel, which I'm super excited about because it's something that I really enjoy. But let's do a pre-quiz just because. Don't worry if you get it wrong because we're going to learn all about it shortly. So the frame of this truck in the front has been narrowed 4 inches. The control arms did not change length, but they were pulled in 2 inches on each side. Because of the frame narrowing, the steering linkage has to change. At the moment, you're just gonna have to trust me, bro, and then we'll get into the why later. The quiz is, what part of the linkage has to change? Are we going to change the length of the tie rods on each side? Or are we going to change the length of the center link? Got your answer yet? The length of the tie rod ends is crucial to minimize bump steer, which is steering motion when the suspension moves up and down. If this length isn't correct, your truck may wander all over the road when you hit bumps. The distance between the two inner joints of those tie rods is not that important. The length of the tie rods is determined by the length of the upper and lower control arms and the vertical position of those tie rods. Meaning if they're up higher, closer to the shorter upper control arm, the tie rods will be shorter. If the tie rods are mounted lower, closer to the lower control arm, the tie rods will be longer. And if it's somewhere in between, it'll be somewhere in between. Again, for now, it's gonna be a little bit of trust me, bro. But in this video, I'm going to cut this center link in half and remove a total of 4 inches to match the 4 inches that we cut out of the frame. And in upcoming videos, yeah, we're probably gonna have to start doing some more suspension basics videos because it gets a little bit more complicated. Might not even be suspension basics anymore. I need to remove a 4-inch section from this drag length, and it doesn't really matter where I remove it from. It doesn't have to be centered. Just the overall length is what matters the most. But I have a couple bends in this bar, and when I remove the 4-inch section, I'm gonna need to put it back together. So I'm gonna want at least a little bit of straight material to work with. So I'm going to at least roughly find the center. Then we'll take the 4-inch section based off of that. So we'll mark 4 inches, 0 inches, and the actual 4-inch section that I want needs to be pretty precise. So let's make a really big mark with a paint marker, and then we'll make a more precise mark with something a little more precise, like a scribe. You can find these just about anywhere. This is a tungsten tip scribe, and I will leave a link for it in the description. Cheap, very helpful, and it comes with a bunch of replacement tips if I remember correctly. So that's my 4-inch section right there. Let's get rid of that. You know what? Before I cut it, I think it might be a good idea if I put some match marks on there to make it really easy to make sure that both pieces are twisted perfectly when we put it back together. The marker won't stay for very long, so I'm gonna have to do it with a grinder or something. Oh, just hit my pinky, or shook my pinky, or something. Ugh, vomit. Well, could have used my usual methods for marking a cut line on this tube today because I don't have a pipe cutter big enough right now. It's in storage, and my bench is completely full, so I can't lower the miter saw. So I'm just gonna mark it with a piece of tape. I don't know how I'm gonna attach this thing back together yet. It might be pinned, it might be bolted, welded, all the above, but all of my ideas use a sleeve, a coupler of sorts. Whatever it is, I think I'm gonna hold off on spending a whole lot of time connecting these together until I know that the steering is working and I'm even working on the right piece. I don't want to spend hours reattaching this thing and then find out that I don't know. I don't know what I would find out. So to begin with, I think I'm just going to make a couple set screws that will tighten down onto this thing and hold it together. Absolutely not good enough for the street, but perfect for the garage and for testing. We've got a problem. I couldn't foresee this exact problem, of course, but this is exactly why I didn't want to spend time on that sleeve until I knew everything worked. Come have a look. I'm over here on the passenger side trying to get the idler arm bolted up, and the holes won't line up. What? Oh, the drag link is hitting the transmission. That's cool. Well, I'm annoyed, but I'm not shocked even a little bit. So what's happening is I raised the front of the frame up 2 inches, and then I dropped the engine and transmission back down 2 inches. There's the reason right there. It's that simple. Some rapid fire options. I could potentially lift the engine and transmission back up. Perhaps I can figure out how to relocate the drag link so that it's in front of the transmission in this nice little pocket right there. I'm not really sure what that would take. Or I could design the drag link from scratch, basically, and just build a giant bend in it to curve around the transmission. Or maybe, just maybe, I can trim the bottom of the bell housing, but I don't have a flywheel just yet. So just trimming that little bit off might not be enough. Might hit the flywheel, and that would suck. So I'm not really sure. Every option is a significant amount of work, but the only one that doesn't require a lot of work to test is lifting the engine and transmission. For that, I can just unbolt things and jack it up a little bit. So if that ends up working, then I will have to remake some engine mounts and space out the transmission mount, but I got to do something. All right, the engine and transmission has been lifted about 1 inch, and I can get the bolts started. Look at that. How much clearance do we have? Wow, we have almost no clearance right here, but it's a step forward. Because the pitman arm and the idler arm are mounted to the frame at an angle, almost 45 degrees it looks like, the drag link is gonna pull up and move backwards a little bit when you steer. So I gotta make sure that I have enough clearance at all positions. Well, the center link hit the trans and kind of lifted up the entire drivetrain. So I lifted the engine and trans up a little bit higher. And let's see if I can measure exactly how much that moves up and back. Actually, you know what? Let's just put this at full lock, which it is already, and then I'll drop the engine down to about the amount of clearance that I want, and we'll see how much of a change in the mounts that is. I gotta take a moment to think out loud, maybe vent a little. I was really excited about getting this engine up and running sometime in the next couple weeks. It was a huge milestone for me. It just felt like the truck was getting so close. And then the steering issues are setting me back, but I think it's all mental. I have to get the engine crane out so that I can lift the engine and I can get the mounts out so that I can modify them. But I need to take the engine out anyways because I need to figure out the clutch flywheel situation. I've got a Mighty Max transmission, an Eclipse engine put together. I have to figure out how to get them to play nicely. The engine also needs to come out because I need to paint the frame, do some detail stuff, and it would help quite a bit not having the engine in the way of the firewall. And I suppose it would probably make sense to take the engine out now before it's running rather than attaching all the wiring and the fuel and then having to pull it out later. I don't know why I'm so frustrated about it. Like I said, I think it's all mental, but I gotta take the engine out. That's going to be it for this one, guys. I told you we weren't going to finish anything. Thank you again for everybody that supported GarageFab on the GarageFab.tv merch store. You guys just might be saving GarageFab, at least the frequent posting version of GarageFab. Fun fact, it's also mancandy.com if you want to push less keys, but that makes some people uncomfortable for some reason, so GarageFab.tv. Also, I asked what you guys want. I asked what you guys wanted to see in the merch store, and a lot of you said stuff like hoodies and beanies. It's pretty much shorts weather year-round in Vegas, so it's kind of hard for me to think outside our borders. So I'm definitely looking into some warmer stuff. Thank you guys, and until the next one, keep moving forward.